I don't know if you found yourself ducking or jumping, but when I was going through that this week, I thought, oh my goodness, metro trains and mass transit are dangerous. So just stay away. Watch what you're doing. Our title this week, out of Family Matters, is Too Close for Comfort. And the title really comes from a sitcom that was back in the 1980s through 83. It was based on a family in the life of San Francisco. A man and his wife had a couple of older girls who were out doing life, and things happen and they have to move back home. And guys, this is just a little bit too close for comfort for me because I've been there. And what happens when your kids come back home? You are still mom and dad. I just want to say it. You are still mom and dad. Now, some of your kids don't like that, and some of your kids do like that. And the kids that don't like it don't hang out very long, okay? So they just come in and they move, and it's way too close for comfort. So guys, what do near misses and too close for comfort have to do with family life? I want to say this, and again, as we move through the text this morning in Proverbs, I want you to understand this. In marriage, listen to me, every marriage, there will be a season when something will come into the relationship that will be challenging from the outside and will try to destroy your marriage. Every marriage goes through this. And it happens, and sometimes it's as subtle as a drive or ambition. Sometimes it's an individual. Sometimes it's a mindset or maybe even an expectation. But sometimes, somewhere, all families experience a nudge that has the potential of pulling the marriage apart. And really what you do with that pull will define the future of your relationship. Yesterday I did a wedding for Michael and Nikki, now Poole, and they usually sit right here. And it just reminded me, do you remember when you exchanged vows, what that all looked like? You probably said something like this. I promise to love you, forsaking all others, in riches and in poverty, in sickness and in health, to give my life fully, completely, and wholly to you, and never let anything come between my commitment to you as long as we both shall live. Now, guys, you did some rendition of that when you got married, and you meant it. And probably more than anything, you didn't understand the full weight of it. You know, when I do marriage counseling, I'll be sitting in there and I'll do marriage counseling with a couple, and I look at them and they're looking at me and they don't see me. All they see is, happily ever after, no bills, life's going to be great. Nothing's going to happen you don't know. I've had people tell me, Pastor, you just don't know. Love is going to get us through. And I just look at him and I smile and I said, for the first week, And then you got to put your boots on. And guys, as I watch this, so many couples make these vows and they're not really sure exactly what's ahead of them. And that's just the reality. And then something else happens. And again, I just want to remind you, we talk about the ring. And so they exchanged rings yesterday. And remember the symbolism of the ring? The ring being a circle, right? And the symbolism is this is our unending devotion to each other. And man, that sounds good. Doesn't that? That's just warm and fuzzy. That sounds great. And then all rings are made out of a pure metal, signifying the purity of their relationship with one another. And once again, that's incredible and that's great. You know what my wife reminds me of is this. She said, when you see the ring on Bart's finger, you know what that says? She says, he's mine, hands off. Okay? And guys, that's exactly what a marriage is. He's mine, she's mine, hands off. This is pure. This is everything. The symbol is important because once you put a finger on that ring, I'm amazed at how it influences outsiders to see that ring as a conquest or an opportunity. And I want to be very candid with you this morning. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4, it really echoes the symbolism of the ring. It says, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. Pure. So you look it up in the original, it means undefiled. It talks about a unique personal relationship where you pledge to each other, you're going to be my one and only. Now, guys, I need to back up a little bit because Hebrews chapter 13 has had a lot of debate. And so I just want to go there and then we'll finish up here in a second. But I want to remind you that this instruction doesn't say everyone has to be married. We were in a church plant years ago. And the mother church had a guy there, and this guy ended up getting another church, and he left, and he brought a new guy in. And this new guy was a couple years younger than me, and he had just gotten married. And he's preaching on a Sunday morning, and he stands up, and I'm not kidding you, okay? This is what he says from the pulpit. If you're not married like me, you're in sin. Now, I'm sitting there, and I don't know what the rest of the sermon's like, but at this point, it's time for the sermon to be over. And so I'm the music and youth guy at the church, and I just get up and walk up to him real nice, and I just whisper, I think it's time to go. And this outside entity had brought this guy in to speak. And he goes, what? And I said, you and I need to talk theology one of these days, but today's not the day, and you're not going to hurt people today. The Bible doesn't say, if you're not married, you're in sin. Got that? In fact, do you remember what Paul said? He said it'd probably be better for you if you weren't married because you could spend more time serving Jesus. But for those of you who are weak, get married. I'm weak. All right? For 39 years, I've been weak. But guys, it is so funny how people take things and they move them around and they do different things like this. Listen to me. That's not what this verse says, okay? So if you're not married, please do not look at that interpretation of Hebrews 13. It's wrong, okay? So the other side of Hebrews 13 is really practical in a relationship. Do you realize this? I have never done this at a ceremony before. We're at the altar. These guys are exchanging vows. And all of a sudden, she looks at her soon-to-be husband and says, I will be faithful to you 360 days out of the year. But 5 days, I get to do whatever I want to do. And have him look over and go, pretty good idea. I want to do that too. Now, guys, I had friends in high school when they got married, and they were just trying to be in vogue or whatever. But here was their marriage vows. I pledge to honor, respect you, and you be my one and only until something else better comes along. And I remember after the wedding sitting down with them and said, guys, you're not even trying to make this work. I ran into them 15 years later. They were still married. They had gotten saved. And they stood back and said, what were we thinking? You stand at the altar and you say, my goal is pure, undefiled. You're my one and only. And that's what a God-honoring marriage is all about. Swindoll writes this, the greatest gift that you can give your marriage partner is your purity and your fidelity. Amen? Yeah. But guys, there are many who approach this union between a man and a woman with different incentives. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. We're kind of experiencing it as grandkids, but I saw it with my kids a number of years ago. That day comes when they finally, that little kid begins to roll over, and before you know it, they're trying to scoot and trying to get around. A few weeks ago, we had some folks over at a house that used to be here, and they've got a little kid, and this little guy would get up and look like he's getting ready to hike a football. And he's up and rocking back and forth, and he couldn't get anywhere, but he looked like he's ready to go, a sprinter. And it was so funny. That was on Sunday. On Monday, they send me a thing on Facebook, and they go, Bart, he learned to crawl. I mean, he was just sitting there, he couldn't do anything, and he learned to crawl. You know what we did in our house? As soon as our kids learned to crawl, everything from 18 inches down, we got rid of. And then they learn how to get up on furniture and pull themselves up. So then you go from 36 inches down because they're going to just tear it up anyway. And then they start running. And then it's about 48 inches down. And then for the rest of your life, you can't have nice things until they move out, okay? And then what do kids do? All kids do this. Once they begin to and your daughter, I was loving her this morning. She just come over and she just sit down, life is good. But kids always get as close as they can to the edge and just see. So they get on furniture and mom and dads go crazy. And in our home, all we did is we built things so that they wouldn't fall and hurt themselves, okay? Guys, they just want to get as close to the edge as they can without having to go to the hospital And little by little, kids get it. One day they learn that the bumps and the bruises and all this misadventure isn't really worth the pain. And that's what kids do. But listen to me. In a marriage, trying to figure out how close to the edge you can get opens the door for failure. Does that make sense? When you pledge to be somebody's one and only, it means just that. I'm yours and you're mine. And that's it. And there can't be any others, and there can't be any reservation, and yet many want to see what they can get away with and still not get burned. Guys, you know, one of the things that I love about God is He gives us freedom, and freedom in so many amazing things. But when you push to the outer edge, you put yourself in a position to fail. And there are warnings and road signs, and we're going to look at some of those in Proverbs chapter 6. You know, throughout this book of Proverbs, it's amazing. There's practical insights about life and relationships and wisdom and folly. And there are sections where, we get to Proverbs 31, and this is the amazing woman, superwoman, and the titles as you go through. There's also sections all the way through Proverbs where Solomon is writing, and they are called my son sections. And basically what it is here's a dad that's looking out there, and he looks at his kid and he says, I want to make sure you don't make the mistakes I made. My wife gave me about 3 or 4 years ago a thing to give to our kids, and one day I'm going to give it to them. And basically I'm writing memories, thoughts, and I'm putting in there counsel, and it's every day of the year. And the amazing thing is, as I'm working through it, the little format is, tell your kids about a time where you failed. Tell your kids about a time that God did something incredible in your life. And I've been working on this thing for 5 years. Denise told me it should take me about 6 weeks, and I'm not that quick. But one day, I'm going to have the ability to hand it to my kids, and it's a my son section, to be able to stand up and say, listen, here's the thing. And this will help you as you live your life. This will help you insights into areas maybe you don't even know about. And so Proverbs chapter 6 is a my son section. It really provides great insight in an area that is really too close for comfort when it comes to marriages. Look at chapter 6 and start with verse 20. It says, my son, keep your father's commands and don't forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them up upon your heart forever. Fasten them around your neck, and when you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they'll watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For these are commands, are a lamp. This teaching is a light, and the correction of discipline are the way to life. Now, guys, when we read it, the first question that comes out is what commands? What did he tell him? Well, what teaching? It's assumed by reading verse 20 that this instruction, something has taken place. And Solomon has sat down with his son and he's talked to him. It's funny. I had a friend a number of years ago. He and his wife got married. They had their first baby. And I'll never forget this. And this is exactly what he told me. I am not going to make my son do anything. Because I grew up in a home where my dad had laws, and that those laws only led to frustration in my life. All right, we'll talk about parenting here in a couple weeks, and I'm just going to tell you that is not good parenting. But he tried, and it only lasted until the kid was 4 months or something like that. Guys, listen to me. He had to rethink his position. As parents, you know what our job is? It's to train and raise up our kids. It's not to check out. It's not to sit on the couch. It's to love them and train them and grow them up. So we read from the text, the son is instructed, and dad says, don't push aside what I told you, hold on to it. And the son is taught is what it says. And dad says to him, what your mom taught you was vital, embrace it. And then he says, take all these gifts, all these attributes and instruction, even though they may have been frustrating, even though they may have been restricting in your life, and understand, bind them up. In other words, put them together, put them in your pocket, secure them and don't lose them because they're important. Think back to your growing up days. It'd be interesting if we could just kind of instantly do this. And maybe I'll just ask, what one bit of counsel did your parents teach you that you still hold on today? Somebody remember something? Something your parents taught you and you still hold on to today? Anything? Yeah, Aaron. There you go. All right. See? And you don't see a bump on the back of her car, do you? All right. I should never have said that, right? Somebody else. Some counsel.
When I told my dad I was going to be 50 before I finished college, he said, well, you're going to be 50 anyway.
Good statement. Yeah, Melissa.
Don't eat yellow snow.
Absolutely. The best advice any parent could give a kid. Okay, so in my family, I remember my mom sitting down with my brother, okay, and I'm in 6th grade, he's in 7th grade, and she sits down, and again, I don't know if you guys even know what this means, because I looked at it and I didn't know what it meant, but my mom looked at my brother and she was trying to be firm and everything else, and she says, cleanliness is next to godliness. And we went, wow. I have no idea what that meant, but what it meant with my brother is he started taking more showers. And so I'm in 6th grade, and that was my hero, so I started to take more showers, okay? So here's what I remember my folks doing. My folks sat down with us, and we had a lesson on how to answer the phone. What? This is Bart Poole. Thank you for calling the Poole residence. May I help you? And people would go, what? You know, this is Bart Poole. And again, when we tried to cut circles, oh man, my folks got me. We sat down one night and we learned how to eat with forks. Now, I'm just telling you, I've got 3 brothers, and you know how you eat with a fork? You take that puppy, you go like this, and you shovel as much as you can. All right? When Denise first started dating me, she sat down in the first meal, she said it looked like Thanksgiving, you know, because every meal was like that. And she said, if you put a hand into the middle, you brought back a stub. I mean, we devoured things. And I am in high school. And my mom and dad are like, you guys are going to start dating. Let me show you how to hold a fork, because this is the way we did it. I am so glad she taught me that. My folks also taught me something back when I was in grade school. I had a girl that was bigger than me in grade school, and she hit me. And you know what? I hit her back. And I got in trouble, and I had to go to the principal. And I will never forget how disappointed my dad was. And he said, Bart, you don't ever hit a girl. And I said, Dad, she's bigger, and she hurt me. And my dad says, you don't ever hit a girl. And that has stayed in my mind. My folks taught us how to pray. My folks taught us how to garden. My folks taught us how to change oil. My folks taught us how to fight fair. I've got 4 brothers. We boxed a lot. And we took it to the ring when there was problems. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's the way we did it. And guys, when all that's going on, little did we have any knowledge that these lessons and the work ethic and everything that we were learning was going to follow us all the days of our lives. But Solomon knew. And so he says, when you step out on your own, those teachings and instructions, they will guide you. How? Conscience. Boundaries. I remember in high school, a girl she slapped me, and for no reason. And I am telling you, I counted to like 5,000, and I still wanted to just knock her out. And all I kept hearing my dad say is, don't hit girls. Look what else it says. When you sleep, these instructions will watch over you. There's a sense of peace and satisfaction when you go through the day and you just do it right. Isn't there? You accomplished it. When you awake, these teachings will speak to you because you will have a healthy understanding of what's right and what's wrong. So most of us wouldn't agree with verse 23 when we were growing up because we didn't want discipline. All we wanted to do is be free. We just wanted to do life. But there's a purpose and instruction, and even in discipline. And one day as you get older, you begin to realize it's okay, that's good, because those tough things, even when your folks said no, make you stronger. My 9th grade year, I get done with 9th grade. I did great in school. I didn't struggle at all, and I had to take an art class. Some of you have seen my drawings, and it looks back like cavemen 450 million years ago. I can't do stick figures, okay? I just want to let you know I'm not good at it. So I go through art class, and I got a B- because at least you could take tests. Because if I did anything artistic, it was awful. I bring it home. My mom is an artist. My older brother is an artist. My younger brother is a stinking artist. And I walk in the door with my B- and I got put on 2 weeks restrictions. And my mom and dad were disappointed in me, and I was hot. And I just kept going, I can't do this. And I couldn't do it, but I learned. Guys, listen to me. All those things make you stronger. Anybody play basketball growing up? Everybody knows what a killer is? Anybody run lines? Everybody hates lines, okay? Everybody hates lines. And as you're running him, the coach is saying, you're going to be stronger than the next team, you know? And it's kind of like, what? And you just kept running lines and running lines and running lines. And then you're playing in a game, and you look over at your opponent, and your opponent is gassed. There's 2 minutes left in the game, and the line's paid off. And that's why they make you do it. Sometimes the hardest things in life make you stronger. And look what he says. Those teachings and those discipline, the rules, they provided a lamp, I love that phrase, and enabled you to be strong. And then Solomon writes, they are the way of life. Write it down. They're the way of life. Your kids need it. Your grandkids need it. They prepare you for what? For the subtleties and the influence of this world. Guys, listen to me. There will always be thoughts. There will always be influence. There's always going to be somebody who's going to attack your teachings, your instruction, and the discipline. They're going to stand back and say the way of life wasn't the way. Always. So guys, understand, keep your eyes open. So how about a young man? What captures the heart of a young man and leads him away from truth? Here is the way of life, is what Dad says. But he also says, here's what's going to pull you away if you're not careful. Look at verse 24. He says, for these commands are a lamp, they're a light, the correction of discipline are the way of life, keeping you from what? Look what he says. The immoral woman, from the smooth tongue of the wayward wife. And then he gives instruction. Don't lust in your heart after her beauty, or let her captivate you with her eyes. For the prostitute reduces you to a loaf of bread, and the adulteress preys upon your very life. Now at this point, ladies, you're thinking, I can check out. I don't have to think about it. But I want to say there's great instruction there to keep you away from immoral men as well. And look at the tool. It's subtle, guys. It's the effectiveness of a smooth tongue. It's somebody who tells you the right things. There's somebody who tells you how good you are and how elegant you look. Man, you look great in those jeans, and how tantalizing that dress looks. Lying, seductive flattery. It's a powerful tool to separate men and women alike from the teaching and the instruction they received and they grew up in. Because you know, guys, whether you know this or not, we all like to hear something good about us. And they pull you in. The truth is, in the relationship, after the honeymoon is over, the work really begins. I was reading a statistic about 15 years ago, and it was really a startling one for me. It was talking about the average stay of pastors in a church and staff members. 15 years ago, the average pastor stayed in his church 18 months. 18 months. So you got guys who have been there for 40 years and guys who've probably been there for 3 weeks. 18 months was the average. The average youth pastor was in the church for 12 months. Takes about a year for the youth guy to figure out how to burn down the fellowship hall, and then he's got to go, you know? All right, but think about it. Why? And so this study said, here's what we've discovered. A new guy comes on the field and the church falls in love with him. Man, this guy is great and he's going to do this and do this. And they extend all this love and they hold on to him. They do all this stuff, and it lasts about 18 months, and then the honeymoon is over. And you got to roll up your sleeve and do ministry. Guess what happens in marriages? It's about 18 months. You know, you make sure you say, I love you all the time. And, you know, you get home, you do little things. And, you know, you come in, even though you don't like to do it, you change, you know, the cat litter. Who came up with cat litter? And all these great things that you do for each other. And it lasts about a year to 18 months. And then guess what happens? Life. And the job's pulling on you. Life. And there's midnight feedings. Life. And toilets break. I always say that because we've had so many toilets break in 39 years, it just drives me crazy. And guys, the love and passion and promise that produced this union are being pulled out by so many other things. And before you know it, now it's time to put on your boots. It's time to invest. It's time to understand this is going to be hard some days. And that's okay because everybody has to go through it, guys. But there are people out there, beautiful people, who will say the right things, look the right way, flutter their eyes, flex a bicep. And the whole goal is to captivate and create doubt in your marriage. And guys, we all know doubt's voice. It's been around for a long time. And here's what doubt says. Did God really say? Where's my out? You know, God told Adam and Eve they could have everything. Isn't that cool? Have you read it? He said, look, I made it all for you. You can have every tree. You can have everything I made for you in the garden. And he gives one restriction. Just one. But you can't eat from this tree, but everything else is yours. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that's amazing. It's all yours. And then what did Satan begin to do? Satan began to look at him and say, let's kind of pull on this and let's do some other things. And he began to systematically get their eyes off of everything and then make them feel like God was holding something back by saying, you can't touch the one. Guys, the adulteress wants what she can't have. And the prostitute is only interested in exploiting weakness. And everyone who pulls at a marriage creates a longing and an anticipation that they have something you don't. It's amazing to me over my lifetime. I'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, are you married? And I'll say, I am. And they'll say, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry? It's the best thing ever happened to me. What do you mean you're sorry? And they'll look at you like, I can't believe you came back with that. And I'm just saying, why would I be sorry? Has it been tough? Yeah, it's been tough. But guys, why would I be sorry? I made this commitment. And here's what happened. If they can create enough of a twinge of dissatisfaction, you're hooked. And I want you to hear this, and I want you to catalog it because it's true. They will always tell you what you want to hear. Always. They'll create a storyline that feeds your ego, and all they're waiting for you is you to get close enough, and then they've got you. So years ago, I was a youth pastor, and Denise and I, we took our kids to Skate City. We were having a great time, and it was one of those unique times. Denise was 7.5 months pregnant with Kristen. Yeah, Denise was pregnant with Denise. You make sure when she gets back, you tell her I said that, okay? She was 7.5 months pregnant with Kristen, and she was at Skate City, and I was telling her, no, if your water breaks, no. We got 50 kids here. But she was doing her stuff. And so I'd been skating, I was hot. I sat down, I was drinking a dew, and this young lady just comes up, and she sits down at my table. And so I said hi to her, and I start laughing, and I go, somebody's sitting there, you shouldn't sit there. You know, just thinking she'd get up. And she didn't care. And so I said, so what's going on? And I don't know what her exact words were, but they were flattering, and something about watching me and something about wanting me. And I'm looking at her, and I'm just like, what did you just say? And I started laughing, and I said, I'm married. And she says, I don't care. And all of a sudden, I know I'm sweating. I'm not glistening now. I'm just, guys, I'm scared. And she was on the prowl, and she wrote her phone number down, and she slid it across. And she said, you call me, and I'll make all your dreams come true. Now, I'm thinking, she doesn't know I want a Corvette, you know? I mean, how did she know that? And then I realized I'm the slow one, okay? So I was laughing, and it was getting pretty intense, and I told her, I'm very, very married. And I said, see that lady over there? That's my kid she's got. She's 7.5 months pregnant. And I told her, I'm not interested. And then, guys, the sales pitch went to a different level. And she told me she didn't care if I was married. She wanted me, and she attempted to reduce me, listen, to a piece of bread, hoping to rely on the lust of a man. And you know what I did? I got up and I walked away. Listen to me. Too many times, church, we don't walk away. Are you hearing? We love to hear the proposal. We love to hear all the false promises, the empty affection, realizing that deep inside it's not right, but also listening just feeds our ego. And maybe that day it was a tough day, and maybe Denise and I were fighting that day, and I was having a woe is me moment. And so I just sit here and listen, and I talk about how bad it is and how tough it is. And this person's looking at me going, I understand. And then we flirt. And we think, I'll just stay a little bit, but I won't touch. And before you know it, you're in trouble. Guys, Solomon's counsel is really a wake-up call. Look at verse 27. And it's so real. Can a man scoop fire into his lap without it burning his clothes? Guess what? No. Can a man walk on hot coals without his feet being scorched? No. So is he who sleeps with another man's wife. No one who touches her will go unpunished. Guys, do you understand this? And really, it's the gist of what he's saying. Mess with fire, you're going to get burned. Understand that? Don't play with it. Don't listen to the flattering tongue, because, listen again, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And don't think the grass is greener on the other side, because it's not. All the flirting, the second guessing, the playing with fire is too close for comfort. Do you understand? You're not immune. You're not above temptation. And if you get too close, what does Solomon say? You're going to get burned, guys. So I want you to back up a chapter to Proverbs chapter 5, verse 15. Here's the counsel that we need to hear. And it really provides a great remedy. Look at Proverbs 5:15. Solomon writes, drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Now I want you to remember, he is talking about marriage, okay? So he's standing back saying, you've got it. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the street, your streams of water in the public square? Should this intimacy be brought out in the open? No, this is between you and your wife, your husband. Let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. And then look at this promise. May your fountain be blessed. May you rejoice in the wife of your youth. Guys, listen to me. One man, one woman. It's hard. But it can also be an adventure. And with every relationship, there are ebb and flows. And I just want to encourage you, don't check out when it's hard. I'm just going to say, work harder. Run more lines. Do what it takes. Learn to love each other. I've shared with you guys that in our 6th year, we were done. It's over. We have a weekend. We're up in Monument, Colorado, and I take my kids to my parents' house. Back in the old day of a pager, I shut the pager off, and I sit down with Denise, and I said, when we're finished this weekend, we're either going to be married or we're not. but we're going to make this thing work. And it was hard. We took the phone off. I was on staff at a church. I told the pastor I'm not coming in. And we talked and cried. And that short little blonde-haired girl, she hit me a few times, and I didn't hit her back, okay? About 7 o'clock on Sunday night, resolve. And you know what it got down to? Two selfish people just wanting their own ways instead of loving each other and being selfless. But it was both of us. And I stopped saying, I love you. And she stopped caring for this, and I stopped doing that, and all these little things. And it wasn't a bunch of big things, but they all amounted to both of us being selfish. And all I wanted to do is have Bart Poole taken care of. I didn't care. And I learned that day, we talked about last week, Ephesians 5:22. Men, you give your life up just as Jesus gave his life up for the church. Fight. Make it work. And why think that someone else is going to provide something you imagine is out there? Guys, they can't. You're going to pursue misery and hurt for the rest of your life. So look what he says. Drink the water from your own cistern. Make it work. In other words, love the one you gave your life to from the beginning when you said, to have and to hold for the rest of my days, I choose you. Now here's some other counsel. Enjoy each other. Oh my goodness. Enjoy each other. You know what's funny at our house? I don't know if you guys do this or not, but we watch The Voice, okay? And awesome. We watch The Voice at our house. And when The Voice is on, we don't answer our phone. Yeah, I know. We got us a highfalutin pastor here. We don't answer the phone because that's our time. And we laugh. And I'll mimic somebody I don't think's a very good voice, even though they're on TV. And we just have a great time. We enjoy each other. Guys, have fun and enjoy each other. If there are issues, don't give up on them. Find someone who will help you. And here's the other thing that marriages are great at: pride. We don't want anybody to know, right? Sometimes you can't fix it, and that's okay. And so you come in the office and you say, Pastor Bart, I don't know what to do. And I'll say, look, I've got somebody. I know an agency. I know these individuals. They're incredible. And you don't even have to tell me about all this stuff. But get help. Because too often we can't get there. You guys know I play golf. And a couple years ago, I got real sick. Me and lilacs don't get along at all. And so you guys have seen this year, the greatest thing, I don't even know what's going on. They just have never really burst forth. So the fragrance isn't there. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm happy, okay? 2 years ago, I was in the hospital because of them. I've been in the hospital 5 times because of lilacs. I'm allergic to them. And so after the lilac episode, my equilibrium was off. And I'd go out and play golf, and I kind of look like Joseph playing golf, okay? Love you, buddy. Love you. And so I'm literally, I could not get the ball off the ground. And I'd go out and play, and I'd play 2 or 3 holes and walk off. And I was playing with one guy. He says, you know you're supposed to press through. And I said, have you seen my game? There is no pressing. Now, as a guy, I don't want to go ask anybody. So I sit out in my backyard, and I hit wiffle balls, and I do all this stuff. And finally, I have to just break down and say, I lost my game. I need somebody just to show me. And all it got down to is I was swinging too fast because I was pressing so hard. And it took one lesson. Listen to me. Sometimes the things in our lives feel like they're like this and they're like that. I'm going to share one last story and then we're going to close. My sister and brother-in-law called me a number of years ago. They'd been married about 7 years, and she's done. She's divorcing him. We want you to do the counseling. Don't ever be a pastor because your family always wants you to do the counseling, okay? And I said, oh my goodness. So they came into my office, and I said, what's the problem? He doesn't love me. Oh, man. So I said, well, what's the proof of that? Well, at home, when something would break, you and Dad, you guys would grab a tool and you would do this and you'd put it together. And I go, yeah, well, that's love. Okay. So I look at Mike and I said, Mike, what do you do? And he goes, well, when something breaks in our home, we had finances. We just ordered a repairman. That's love. And I said, does he order a repairman? And she said, yeah, but he can't love me unless he does it himself. Okay, guys. It was a 20-minute counseling session, and they've been married now, almost 30 years. But listen to me. That's what we do, isn't it? And sometimes an outside perspective can look in and say, I think he still loves you. And I think she still loves you. And they just call a repairman now. Look at me. If you're struggling, get some help. But never share your intimacy with somebody else. Does that make sense? It's not God's design. So Solomon writes, may your fountain be blessed. May you rejoice in the wife of your youth. And I want to tell you, tiptoeing next to the edge never pays off. Eventually you fall. I'm going to ask you to bow your heads and close your eyes this morning. So what happens? What happens if there's failure? What happens if something takes place? As a couple, guys, you got to sit down and talk through this stuff. And you ask for forgiveness and you work through it. And maybe sometimes when you do that, it takes a long time for the other person to heal. The world is trying to do everything they can to separate us, to destroy the family, to destroy a good marriage. And if I sat there and polled you, you could sit back and say, here's my tug, and this is what happens here, and this is, so you guys all know it. Sometimes you have to be like Joseph or like Bart at Skate City, and you run because that's the best. Sometimes you go at this thing as a team, and together you talk about it, and together you stand up, and together you make this thing work. Sometimes you have to pull in somebody else and just share your heart and be open before God and let God work. It's worth it. Parents, I just really want to encourage you. Don't give up teaching your kids. Most of the time in my life, I felt like they didn't get it. And I just kept doing it and kept pressing in. And then one day, your son gets married and he's 2 years into his relationships and he quotes you and you realize they were listening. If you're younger, don't give up on your folks and the fact that they're teaching you and they're stretching you, because all they want is what's best for you. And even if it all doesn't make sense, even if you get 2 weeks restrictions the first week in summer, it's okay. This is the rest of your life. And they just want what is best. Trust it. Whatever God's laying on your heart right now, guys, again, cast all your cares on Him because He cares for you. I'm going to pray and we're going to close. Father, first of all, I thank you that you have this incredible design. And Lord, we also know that we live in a world that's fallen, and there's been so many people that have been hurt because of the very thing that we've been reading today. So God, I pray for those folks. Again, God, just over and over, that you would just love them, you would put your arms around them, you would heal them. And Father, I know you have got incredible futures incredible things for them. And so, God, we just pray that you would just encourage and give them peace and comfort. Father, we pray for those who have been tiptoeing on the edge, looking over the fence, wondering if it's better on the other side. God, I just pray this morning you would arrest their heart, because all they're looking for is just trouble. And God, you would stop them now, and just wake them up, Jesus. I pray for families who have had to fight. I've prayed for families who had to do everything they can to hold things together. God, help them get to that place again where they just can enjoy each other. And so, God, heal broken hearts. God, I pray for forgiveness where things have been said that shouldn't be said. And I pray for wholeness so that people will know, again, families matter. Jesus, we love you so much. We give these things to you. In your name we pray. Amen.